Matthew 27, verse 45 through 46, says from about the 6th to the 9th hour, Jesus hung. And over the land there was darkness. And Jesus cried out, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? You see, this is the fourth saying, which leads me to believe that this is the centerpiece of these 7 words. These words give the deepest and darkest mysteries to all of the 7 words that were spoken. You see, I want you to imagine Jesus on this cross at this time. The first 3 words that he uttered, or the first 3 sayings he uttered, were out of concern and compassion for others. However, there is a shift taking place now. There is a shift because Jesus, although he was concerned about others, he began to be concerned about himself. This is where we begin to see the human side of Jesus Christ on this cross. He said, Father, Father, my God, why have thou forsaken me? You see, the first 3 times he spoke, he said, Father. But you notice here, this 4th time, he only refers to God just as that, God. You see, sin had been cast on the Son. And up until this point, Jesus had had the most intimate of relationships with God. But because sin had been placed on him, there was a separation between him and the Father. So, no longer was he saying Father, but he was just saying God, God. But I want you to imagine Jesus on this cross now. He was only able to mutter a few words at a time. See, the belief that we so often have is that these nails were nailed in his hands. I believe that scientific theory proves that these nails were only nailed in his wrist. Because in order for him to hold his own body weight up, they would have had to have been in his wrist. Or else he would have ruled himself down from the point he was on the cross. So as he stood there and hung there, every time he breathed in, as he began to exhale and speak words, he had to pull himself down. Now you think about what had already happened to Jesus. He had been scourged. He had been whipped. He had been beat. So as he went down, he had to come back up. So as he came back up, you think about his open flesh on this tree, on this so-called dogwood tree that splinters in his back. You think about how the Savior felt. You think any of us could have done that? All of this pain, all of this despair, but yet that wasn't why Jesus was saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Because of the separation. You see, Jesus had to go through what we see oftentimes with God when we feel like we're all alone. Because up to this point, like I said, there had been no separation. In order for Jesus to identify with us, God had to turn his back. So you tell me, how do you think Jesus felt when he turned his back? How do you think God felt turning his back on his only begotten Son? How do you think God felt turning his back on himself? So as I get ready to get out of here, there is no reason to believe that in the midst of this deep agony, Jesus fell into the sin and unbelief, as we often do. But he was brought to the ultimate test, to this very brink. His words were not those of unbelief or accusation, but they are a true testimony of his present and devastating situation. You see, I believe that God said, I'm going to show the world just who I am. Just because they think I done took you out, I done turned my back on you, but I'm turning my back only to welcome you home. So when I sit down, you ought to be glad that God turned his back on the son. Because as he turned his back on the son, he turned around so he could hold you, so he could welcome you with all the drug dealing, all the nasty sins, all of the homosexuality, everything under the sun. He said, welcome me, and I had to turn my back on my son just to welcome you on home. I say this is the solitary soul, the solitary man. Eli, Eli, lama, lama, lama. Eli, 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 Eli. Sabachthani. He said, my God, my God, my God, my God. Why hast thou forsaken me?
Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. And I've got to go after that.